We're going to hit on a couple topics today, and it's going to be focused around how to be successful in the next epoch because things have changed a lot over the years. Personally, I started mining back in 2012, and we formed our company HMTech in 2014. So I wanted to start out just to give a little bit of history and talk about some of the things that we've seen over the years. So when mining started, we had air-cooled. That's all there was, right? It was actually, it was how quick you could get the pre-orders, like once ASICs started coming out, because before that it was CPU and GPU. You did it from your PC, and then the ASICs started, and it was really like it was like a nuclear arms race, right? So if you got pre-orders in time, and you sent these folks your money, you were hoping you were going to get delivered on time. Fingers crossed, you were hoping it's going to work. And kind of when the ASIC manufacturers and the miners, we started to get that stuff sorted out. We grew and we evolved, and then it was, how are we going to get the power we need? So I can remember when we were starting, our goal was to have the largest Bitcoin mining data center in the world, and our goal was 10 megawatts, which obviously blown out of the water now, right? But that was the stuff we were looking at. And when you would go to the power companies and you're like, hey, I need 5 meg or I need 10 meg. And they're like, all right, cool, what are you doing? And you're like, oh, here we go. So we're mining Bitcoin, and they think you're lying to them, or you want to grow weed or something crazy. And you get through all that. We get the power we need. We've got our ASICs delivered now, and we created a whole new set of problems that we all had to solve. So I don't think any of us anticipated the airflow issues, the back pressure we would create when we were building our designs of these pods, and all the different crazy stuff that we put together. Then we had to deal with warranty support from some manufacturers where you would get these rigs, they'd be dead in 3 months, and you'd have to ship them back overseas to get repaired, and they might get repaired, they might not. You might get them back and you might not. It was really like the Wild West. Then we had to worry about insurance. Had to worry about banking, still have to worry about that. If you're a Bitcoin miner, you're into Bitcoin, I'm sure that you've had to face being debanked or having financial institutions not bank you just because you deal in crypto. And then, of course, you've got government oversight. Lots of stories right now in the press about Bitcoin miners being too loud or not being good neighbors. We use too much power. We're going to boil the oceans. You've got all this stuff that's working against all this. But the thing that's been amazing about the folks in our industry is that we always shine through. It's kind of the best and brightest, and we always find a way to solve these problems, which is, why we love the industry. So a little bit of just a fun slide, some OG problems, the chance of things going wrong back in the day. So, units failing within 3 months, units not showing up, or if they show up as new and they're already coated in dust, they've been used, and then they don't run, or you get rugged, the units aren't shipped at all. Butterfly Labs was our favorite joke. They had a ton of pre-orders, never shipped a unit. I think CoinDad's actually got one of the few in his museum right now. So if you wanted to see it, you could check it out there. So we took some time and we talked to a lot of the clients that we've got across the country, miners big and small, and we talked about 3 big rocks. What's the biggest pain point that y'all are seeing? And then if you could change one thing about mining hardware, what would you change? And then how could you best improve the mining ecosystem? Number 1 was airflow, right? So they talked about overheats, if they could fix anything. Because you got to think about it, if you've got a small farm, you've got 10 miners, you've got 100 miners, and you get a few that go down, you've got 10 units maybe to mess with and repair. But if you've got 10,000, 20,000, and you've got overheats being a constant problem, that's a tough pill right there. So we had 76% respondents there that said, yeah, overheats are the biggest thing we've got issue with. When we move on to what is the one thing, what would they change? So when we talked about that, it really, there's a lot of variance in the answers as far as specifics go, but we had one kind of overarching theme, if you will, and that was operational efficiency. Everything is so different. We've got to run different software, we've got different parts, we've got all these different facets to to make our farm run and make it do what we want to do, which is mine Bitcoin. And then lastly, how could you improve the ecosystem? And this was real similar to the second answer we got with like 81% consensus from the large miners, which is having something uniform. So like if you were to review and talk about traditional data centers, you've got 42U racks, you've got a specific KVA per rack, you've got the same bolts, the same screws, the same power, the same fittings, it's all universal. In our industry, as you guys know, there's nothing the same. No two parts, no two miners, it makes it tough. So now that we've got all this data collected, we look at how the progression happened. So in terms of mining itself, CPU, GPU progressed into ASICs. ASICs progressed to create a new problem of power issues. How do we secure the power that we need? And then the problems with the air-cooled facilities. In terms of money, we started seeing VC money and investors coming in that wanted stable returns. They had expectations for, hey, we're putting in X amount of money. This is what we expect to see. But then we had the problems that prevented that from happening. So now we're, all of a sudden, we're a super high-risk category. On top of that, there's banking issues. So we talked about it a little bit. The finance rates when people look to get leverage for crypto mining are outrageous. Then you've got industrialization, which caused government involvement. You've got some what we call rogue actors. So some folks that like to do guerrilla mining and steal power, more bad press. And then at mass scale, where do you find the labor, like the skilled labor to handle all these problems and get the solutions that we need? And then the resources are limited in availability and ecological management. So there's a huge slew of problems that we've got to figure out. And so what now? To quote Marcellus Wallace, what do we do now? We apply all this innovation, all the things that have happened over the last decade, what the best and brightest have solved, all the problems that we've encountered, where do we go? And so what we've identified is a two-prong approach. So there's two things, two big key categories here. One is advanced mining, which we believe is going to create a divergence. So you're going to have basic mining. You'll still have some folks that do air-cooled. I think it'll be smaller scale in the very near future. And you'll have closed-loop hydro mining, and you'll have immersion as well. And we lean toward closed-loop hydro for a couple of reasons. First is its 2U form factor, so very similar to what you see in a traditional data center. It's got a consistent hash rate, so if you're a miner right now, you know that on hot days you're going to see your hash rate dip, cools off, you got good airflow, it's going to get better. The hydros don't do that, so you've got the exact same hash rate that the accounting teams do revenue forecasting. So say, hey, this miner's 400T, it's 400T all the time. They've got an extremely low failure rate. We're talking about less than 1% overall. So we've got over a year of data on just shy of 60 megawatts worth of machines that ran. Failure rates are amazing. It's not something we've ever seen in our industry before. Normally, I think if you guys have ran air-cooled, got a good batch, you see, 3 to 5% in the first year. If you got a bad batch, there's no telling. We all remember a few of those models that did that to us where you got 10, 12, 15% that dropped dead. It blows your ROI projections out of the water. There's no way to recover when that happens. So with less than 1%, it owns the market. You've got limited touches, which means it's hot, there's no reboots. They just run, they do what they're supposed to do, they do what they're intended to do. And then there's no environmental factors for failure. So you pull your air-cooled miners out, there's bugs, there's dust, there's heat, humidity, there's corrosion. That doesn't exist with the Hydro series because there's no internal fans. The PSU and the hash boards are all cooled by water. The second side is professional services. There's been a ton of bad actors, or whether intentional or negligent over the years, that just don't do what they say they're going to do. So we are the oldest crypto company that's continuously operated in the US. We were founded back in 2014. it was us. We established the best practices, in the service industry from, from asset tagging, inventory management, and repair processes from start to finish. And we've got the best techs, the best trained techs in the industry. So we carry certifications from every major brand, and we've got 2 locations now, one in North Carolina, one in Texas. So how does it solve the problem? So first we want to look at the cost, right? We want to assess the cost of the issues, and we just used S21s because that's a popular problem right now. So just based on $4,500 a piece, 200T, 2,500 units, medium-sized farm. What does the failure really cost you? So a lot of the folks we talk to say, hey, I'm getting these for this price. I've got locked-in options for the next 6 or 12 months. It's a really good deal. Is it? Right? If you factor in an 8% failure rate in the first year, which if you've been involved in mining, you know that's really conservative. At the bottom of the page, it's going to cost you 1.5% of your annual profit. And at 18% over the second year, again, really conservative, it's going to cost you 3.5%. So we're talking about huge profit losses just based on the machines not doing what they say they're supposed to do and lasting the amount of time that they're supposed to last. And most folks, when they're running their profit calculations or ROIs, and you're getting ready to invest $5-10 million, we're not calculating this, and that's creating part of the problem. For 45 days down, which is if you've ever sent something to the repair center where an S21 would go, you think 45 days is a win. So $250,000 is a lot of money just because something didn't do what it was promised to be done. When we look at the hydro, you're talking about negligible rates just because, not because you did something special, you had secret sauce, just because the products you're buying do what they're supposed to do. You're saving that money and putting it back on the bottom line, ROIing faster, and then getting the turn of your money the way you're supposed to. So almost a $2 million swing overall on a yearly profit basis. So just to kind of tie it together, how does it do that? How does it solve the problems? One is higher hash rate and better density. In let's say a 20 by 80 footprint, you're talking about 40 petahash, give or take. Extremely low failure rate, the more stable hash rate allows you to plan your cash flow. And then it's a standardized 2U design, so you're not having to run to Home Depot, you're not having to run to Lowe's, buy fiberboard and duct tape and fix holes and then swap fans out. It's all the same. Standard 2U design. There's little to no daily water use because it's a closed system. There's no dust, dirt, corrosion. And then the repair process for microBT is 7 to 14-day turn time. So if there's anybody in here who's ever sent a miner for repair that's not a microBT, and it took 14 days or less, I'd be interested to hear the story. Like, I want to talk to you for sure. The other buckets that we've got, there's no more concerns with UL rating. So you've got some issues with some containers. They come from overseas. Inspectors don't like them. They don't pass. You've got to make expensive modifications. These are easy to pass. There's no inspection/code enforcement issues. On the noise side, the problem's solved as well because all the noise from the Bitcoin markups from the fans aggravates your neighbors. You don't have it. The only noise you've got is from the dry cooler, which doesn't really produce any more noise than industrial AC. So you're within code on every facet. The stable power factor keeps the utility happy. So you're at 98 to 100% load factor. And then there's no need for a constant physical presence because you're not doing reboots, you're not pulling machines, you're not having to power cycle. Again, because they're doing what they're supposed to do. So how do we fit in and how do we solve this problem for you? HMTech is there from the beginning and the inception of the idea all the way down to set up installation and training for your team. So it gets the site selected, your PPA negotiated, contractor vesting, site prep. It's literally done so that when you're ready to start mining, we turn the keys over to you and you're hashing. So it's complete best in class, right? So the, the solution is designed for you from the AutoCAD and the delivery to the ISO certified recycling at the end of the life cycle of these miners. So you know that from the time that you buy to the time that these things go to the scrapyard, everything is done the right way. So that's what we've got, guys. Appreciate y'all's time. Come see us. We're at booth 57. Thank you very much.